Okay, good morning and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube Daily Double. Today we're still learning Maseches Eiruvin Perek Vav Mishnayos Vav and Zayin. Mishnah Vav says Chamesh Chaburo Sheshavsu B'Trakal and Echad. So you had a big mansion or something like that, and people, 5 different groups of people are staying there. They're going away for Shabbos. They're renting out these big houses in Muncie or Orlando, the huge houses. 5 different families are going to one big mansion, and there's no walls over there. They don't have different rooms. They just put up partitions, machitzos, right? They don't go up to if they went up to the ceiling, that's rooms, right? So it's considered 5 different houses. Different rooms are considered different houses if different families are staying in different rooms. It's considered distinct. Just having a machitza, 10 tefachim, is distinct. And they're all considered one group. And you just put one eruv for the entire house, because you need different rooms. A machitza is not a machitza. 10 foot is not a machitza according to Beis Hillel. They say it. There you go. So technically, if you want to have a real mechitza between men and women, you got to put it up all the way to the ceiling. I'm not recommending that. The concept of mechitza for davening it's very hard to find a makor, a source for that. That you have to be separate during davening. People think all these conservative people, they sit with their wives in shul. There's nothing wrong with it. According to halacha, it's sort of the poskim struggle to find a source for it. You have to have mechitza, and certainly at weddings, you can't have mixed seating. I mean, it's ridiculous. I even heard a Shabbaton they're having for my old yeshiva in America, and this is for alumni. People are working. As long as they're putting mechitza up during the meals. I mean, this is ridiculous. Modim is mashmak sas and shruyim b'chadarim al ba'aliyos. And both Beis Hillel and Shammai agree. Even Beis Hillel agrees if they're in separate rooms, right? Obviously, the walls go to the ceiling, or one is on a second floor, one is on the first floor. So you have the roof separating the two. The shein tzrichin eruv l'chakakura. They're treated independently, and you need an eruv for each one because they're distinct groups. Each is their own family. Zayin ha'achin ha'shutvin she'ochlin al shulchan avian. Achin and shutvin are not the same thing. They're 2 different cases. Achin, brothers that get their food from their father. They're not working yet. They're under 18. They get their meals from their father. Hashutfin are people that are partners, and they work for somebody. And the person who's the boss, he's giving them their meals. She'ochan hashulchan avim. They're eating either by the father's house. They're eating, doesn't say this, but at least they're eating by the balabayis, the boss's house. They're eating by the boss's house. They eat there. They eat their meals there. V'yishenim bebatayim, and they sleep in their own houses. Now, Rabbi Avadia Bartanura says that they actually take the food from their father's house to there, but other Mefarshim don't explain it that way. Let's keep the simple explanation. They're eating in one place and they're sleeping in their own houses. Where do you put the eruv? Where do you need an eruv in both the places you eat and both the places you sleep, or just in one place? Shrichna eruv l'kol echad ve'echad. So generally, you go after. Each person that's eating with their father, you go after the makom achila generally, right? You go after the makom achila, and each person, because they're independent people, right? So you need an eruv for each one, meaning in the place where they sleep, right? The place where they sleep when they're at their father's house, they're in one house, they're eating together, so they're getting parnasa from their master, from their boss, or they're getting from their father. So when they go back to their houses, you need eruv b'chol echad, even though they're just sleeping there. One of them, right? They have their own house where they're sleeping. They didn't make eruv. What he has to do, he has to on Shabbos, if someone didn't make an eruv, and you want to carry from his rishus, or that person wants to carry his rishus outside to the street or to the chutzner, he asked him about those rishus, which we learned Beis Hillel said you can do it on Shabbos. You can misalik yourself. You can remove yourself from ownership of the house temporarily for Shabbos. When does this apply? That's only talking about when their food, right? Meaning the eruv, chatz eruv, is put in somebody's house. So if the eruv is put in someone else's house, not in the father's house, or not in the boss's house, so then each of them are separate. Let's say the eruv, the person whose house the eruv rests, let's say the father or the boss, right? His house where they're eating, right? And that person, Allah is that person whose house it is, doesn't have to contribute to the eruv. Oh, sheni moin the Urim Chatzar, or in a case where they have their own private, chatzar, they have a house in their own chatzar, right? They're not sharing a chatzar with anybody else. They answer That's just a general halacha. If you have your own house in chatzar, you don't have to ma'arev because you have to join Erev Chatzar. If you share the same chatzar, then there's a concept there. Shlomo Melech was masakin Erev Chatzar. Otherwise, if you have your own house in your own yard, you generally don't have to make Erev Chatzar. That's what's applicable to most houses nowadays. So that's the conclusion of today's Mishnah. Stay tuned for Iyam Etzion, where we discuss something the Gemara discusses. Makom lina gorim, makom achila gorim. What is erev chatzeros? What's more important, the place where you eat or the place where you sleep? And we'll try to tie this into. We talked about this previously by erev Tchumen, and by erev Tchumen I also mentioned the machlokes by Nero Shabbos. If you're eating in one place and you're sleeping somewhere else, where do you put where do you light Nero Shabbos? We'll try to relate all those halachas and give my understanding of what the correct halacha should be in all three cases. Iyam Etzion coming up next.